Yeah, I'm going to tell you, Stu, Earl Wagner has looked awfully good last evening. He don't look like he's left anything at home. Frank Brittle basically is a pavement racer, but he's looked awful good here this evening in time trial or in hot lap time trials, so on. So he's looked pretty doggone good. We've got Rick Ferkel. Rick Ferkel is used to be when he'd show up at a racetrack, we wondered who was going to run second because we knew that he was going to win that event. Leroy Van Connet is going to be sitting on the inside of that third row. Leroy, very, very good. The car don't really act like it's wanting to do what he wants it to do, but again, it may be some time that he has not had in the car. And at car number 2, he's a gentleman. He's Alice's little boy. This is Rayleigh Goodwin. Green flies.
Race fans, welcome to another edition of KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com. Special guest with us today, John McCoy. I always still call you Bigfoot John McCoy. That was the nickname back in the day of racing. How did you acquire that name, first of all? Because your feet aren't that big.
Wasn't that the Tim Trier and
It was.
guys? And I just think they didn't have nothing else to call me, so Bigfoot.
Yeah, because comparatively, I mean, we can put our feet side by side, and I got a way bigger foot than you do, but it stuck.
Well, I think it should have been Big Time because that's a long story, but it had nothing to do with racing. But I think he mixed up and just said Bigfoot.
It happens. I don't know. So, John, I call you boss, but the official title right now is race director. Is that the official title from that Knoxville Raceway?
Yeah, actually, I am race director, promoter. So many of our agreements and insurance and sanctioned agreements and everything have to be signed by the promoter. So
Right. It is / what it is.
I am like Cappy, though. I don't consider myself a true promoter. I think those are the guys that put their own nickel in,
Right.
and there's a lot of them out there and running on their dime. But I don't know if any of them lose any more sleep than I do.
I'm going to say we'll get to that part of the conversation. Let's go back in time. We talked about your nickname coming through, and we were just talking about this on the air too. He's got his phone updating right now, so it just happens. We caught that on camera. It's okay, but we may edit that out. We may not, but we're going to talk about it anyway. We're going to try to have a little bit of fun here and go back to the driving side of life with John McCoy first. And you started out actually in go-karts.
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of people didn't know that. Did just watch sprint car racing. So what is it about farmers in Marion County that end up racing? Let's start with that first, because you were a farm kid.
Yeah, I don't know. Really, probably one of the first ones, I guess, if you're going to call me a farm kid that started racing. I don't know anybody else ahead of me. Maybe there were.
Yeah.
But no, we raced go-karts. Marty Claus and I, we had kind of a team. And of course, that was back in the days of the 101s and then Mac 101s and the 93s and stuff. And we actually did very well.
Where'd you race at?
Oh, we raced all over. Derby, Ottumwa, Montezuma. Ran a couple times over to Newton, but not too much. We kind of ran, just a group of us from Knoxville all kind of bought go-karts at the same time, so we went to some of the smaller places down south.
You mentioned Marty, and he raced the go-karts too, didn't he?
Oh yeah,
Hopefully
Marty was he was probably one of the better go-kart racers in the time.
When was the transition over sprint cars?
Well, I raced go-karts 1 year, and then, like I said, I did really well in them because I had a great engine.
Right.
And I guess a bunch of them thought I would do good in a sprint car, but they forgot the great engine part. You know what? We was like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, just when you start out doing something, you're just kind of dumb.
You know what, though? That part of it hasn't changed. The motor program, and we'll get into this a little bit more later on in the show, but it always seems to have, if you don't have the horsepower, if you don't have that great engine, that killer motor, especially for Knoxville Raceway, it's not that we don't want you out here, but it's going to be tough to get in that top 3.
It is. It's been kind of a double-edged sword, but I ran in the day when there was 30 cars in the 410 class only, and it was tough to make the A. So
right.
When you did, that was a win, and, you did as good as you could to be. Everybody kind of had their own positions, but now maybe we don't have as many cars. I like to see a night when we have no Bs and everybody makes the A, or if we just have a couple, we can just pay them a little extra.
Sure.
So it is a big thing. And we'll start 26 cars just to get everybody in the A.
Started out racing sprint cars at Knoxville 1978.
Yes.
That's a good guess. I was actually here. Started sneaking in back in 77, as they say. Cappy always reminded me that's why I work so cheap out here. So I don't know if that's a fact or not. You did the non-wing thing, which I brought this up in an interview I was actually part of here a couple weeks ago. That's one thing, and maybe you can get this done. I'd like to categorize, not taking anything away from Lasowski at all. He is the career feature winner here at Knoxville Raceway, the most. I think it's 112 now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to see it categorized where it's just non-wing versus wing. I still think, I mean, obviously Wolfgang's got more non-wing feature wins than anybody. I think I counted one time he's only actually has maybe 13, 14 wing car feature wins out here. So I'd like to see that change. But you grew up non-wing racing. I mean, and in all honesty, and we'll talk about safety later on too, you grew up, when I look at these cars that we started out in, and what were we thinking for one thing? I mean, absolutely the safest thing about it was the roll cage. I'm still not sure that was safe.
No, we didn't know any better.
Yeah.
You know, and a roll cage was safer than no cage. It
Right.
wasn't that many years before 78 that they didn't run any cages. So, no, I'm ashamed to say what we probably did, the dates of our belts and stuff like that. But always felt having a good helmet, I guess I was smart enough for that. But
Right.
as far as anything else, I wouldn't brag about anything I had.
You mentioned about the belts, and I can remember with my cousin Billy and stuff, when we first started, it's like, okay, these belts, they're a little bit faded, but they look like they're going to hold up.
Yeah.
Same type of deal?
Oh, yeah. I remember going to a race one time, and I broke, and another car owner asked me if I wanted to drive his car, and I looked at the belts, and I asked somebody, what are those? Well, those old aircraft belts, probably out of a fighter plane, and lucky it might have been the Korean War, you know. And at that point, I said I didn't want to drive it. But
I don't know. I can remember my cousin got hurt 1985, and we had one race left out here. I thought, oh, heck, I can race this thing. No big deal. I get in the car, and I grew up with Rick Schilling. And Rick, you're going to be my crew chief tonight. You know, he didn't know nothing about sprint cars at that time. And I'm getting in the car, and I'm buckling in. He keeps looking down across the top of the cage. I said, what are you doing? Because if you flip, you better duck. He says, you're sticking out about that far. So that was just something we didn't think about back then. It was just, we were all Supermen. And best finish at Knoxville Raceway. You remember?
oh, I said the other day I didn't have a very good career here. I'd always ran pretty good at other places, but I think I had fifth, probably my best finish. I had quite a few fifth places. I don't know why I got stuck on that number, but you know, that was a win for us. I mean, we always felt good about those races. A lot of top tens. There's two good seasons I had. 81 been the last season before Wings, when I did kind of get a fairly decent motor program built up that they ran good. I remember we made the B of the Nationals, and that was a big deal for us. And you know, there were 130 some cars there that year. Then 87, I had a good year, but that was a wing year, of course. First time I ever had aluminum motor. First time I ever had a 400-inch motor. So
was that the year that the motor went kaboom on the backstretch?
Oh yeah, I'd have been in the top 10 in points if that hadn't happened. We called her Old Faithful. All she had last was 2 more races, and of course it blew up on the
big fire.
hot laps.
Yeah, big fire. I want to go back just a couple more years, though, in the 70s again, when you started out. You actually started, and it just triggered my memory here, you actually started when the World of Outlaws started coming around, too. You started seeing some names that you didn't, maybe you've read about in Speed Sport or whatever, but you didn't necessarily race against before.
Right, yeah. No, I went racing with Mike Brooks once in 76, and then we went to Phoenix, and of course I met Steve Kinzer there for the first time. Never even heard of him. And then 77, I went to the races, but I didn't work on any cars. I go-kart raced all year. And so yeah, 78 comes around. Everybody knew Wolfie and all that, but no, it was a different crowd.
What was it like racing against Doug Wolfgang, Steve Kinzer when they'd show up? And Doug would just pop in once in a while. That's what's always was aggravating about him. He never knew when he was going to show up.
Well, for a guy like me, it was stay out of their way, you know.
Right.
Wasn't really saying much of a race. A couple times I'd beat him in a heat race, maybe, you know, Wolfie, if he was driving. I remember one night I beat him. Last time I raced at Knoxville, I was so disappointed. I had a good running car, and we was winning our heat. It was going to be a good night. I had a potential sponsor there, and of course, driveline coupler broke, and we got that fixed in the B. Well, guess who's in the B with me? Doug Wolfgang, and and I ran third behind those two. And I thought Cappy was going to start 4 of us because it was season championship, and
right.
No, he's one of the guys, that he would take a look at the stands and say, I'm only going to pay 20 cars. So I think that's all we started back then. I know Tommy Scott and I looked at each other like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But that was a case where, I had some pretty good stuff, but just no way was I going to be able to keep it up.
You mentioned Cappy quite a bit already. Let's jump into the whole blunt of the thing. You were hired at Knoxville Raceway what year?
Well, he hired me, I think I get this right. He hired me in 91, but I went to work in 92 season.
Okay. As a what?
Really? Well, I told this to Eric Arnold the other day. I kind of got hired and thrown to the fire because Earl Wagner retired.
Right.
And there was no appointed person by Cappy to take over. I was technically kind of hired to be the first really designated tech guy.
Okay.
Earl and Norm had done it themselves, but Norm had other duties and had started flagging. And Earl, of course, was the competition director in the infield and called him pit stewards back then.
Right.
I know what they meant. Everybody's wore out by the end of the night, but so they hired me. But at the same time, then Earl decided that, well, heck, I don't know. I hope he felt it was in good hands, but I didn't know what I was doing. So one of the first races, there was a conflict or something like that, and we had about 4 people decide they was all in charge. And I think Doug Clark got upset, and he went to Cappy. He didn't know I'd already went to Cappy and said, man, this isn't going to work, but I don't really feel I can be named to take over. They don't respect me yet or anything, and they think, they all want to do something. So I think Cappy made a call to Earl and begged him to come back, and Earl did for about 7 more years, and that was fantastic.
Talk about respect and earning the respect. How many years does it take? Because I mean, this is my 23rd season. I know most of these guys really well now, but I can't sit back and think, okay, when did I finally learn the trust and respect of these drivers? Because it does take a fact that, A, they have to know you, and B, they need to know that you know what you're talking about. They're still going to argue with you, don't get me wrong. But at what point does it become, hey, he's been here long enough, it's a respect situation?
Well, heck, I don't know.
You haven't got there yet.
It's simple, and I think Cappy was the same way. And my dad taught me this. If you don't lie about anything, you don't ever have to remember what you said.
Sure.
You always say the same thing.
Right.
If you're telling the truth. And I would dare any of them, any teams, to ever know that I purposely lied to them. I might have been misinformed, but I think that's all it takes. I think if you're just honest as heck with them and try not to sugarcoat it, but tell them that's the way it is and that's the way I see it, and I'm sorry. Most of them, at the end of the night, it's over with.
Knowing you like I know you, you talked about, you may not have been smart enough for tech area or whatever. I also know you study a lot. Plus, you're a racer. You came from the background of it. That helps out too. But at what point did you start feeling comfortable? And you mentioned that Earl was 7 years later. He finally left. I think actually Earl left the year I came in, late 90s, 98, 99 or something like that. At what point did you feel comfortable of holding the reins down there as the pit steward or competition director?
Well, I'd say 98. I think Earl worked through 99, I thought.
Yeah.
But, or maybe not, I can't remember, but it was right in there. And Earl told me about halfway through the season he was going to quit, and this time it was for good.
Right.
But luckily, I had worked in a machine shop, and I had built motors, and I had some, not necessarily the fastest stuff, but back then, stuff that would last. And I knew how to measure stuff, and I knew how to bore and stroke and check and stuff. And I also knew that our pump, I had taken it and measured a lot of known motors, and I knew it was a very accurate pump, and I knew it had a lot of work done to it.
Sure.
So I had good equipment, and that was also that period when I started was when ASCS started, when more tech was needed because more rules were adopted, and
Right.
that tech wasn't easy on those ASCS. Well, I should say it was very easy at first until the rules started being relaxed in that head.
Right.
And so that became much more complicated, the tech, and then it got to be impossible because some of the rules we were still trying to adhere to in the book were being broken by every engine builder, and other groups weren't checking them. So I'm not crying on anybody's shirt tail. I'm just saying it got tough.
Yeah.
And we was disqualifying people, and Mike Profit started working for me in 99 or 2000, and we both was looking at it like, this is broken.
Right.
So I'm not saying it's better now. I'm just saying we're not disqualifying as many for this stuff that should have never been in there.
trying to remember when that first came out. There was a head rule / gasket rule that they could make some machine changes and stuff like that. So everybody tried to circumvent that whole thing, didn't they?
Oh yeah, you're making me shiver thinking about those. The gasket
Flashbacks,
rule.
huh? PTSD out of that deal.
Just give me a stack size and a header size, and I'll be happy.
You'll be happy, indeed. You mentioned Mike Profit. Of course, Mike's down there right now. He's still teching their way. But let's go back to rules a little bit. And again, you worked for Cappy, and I had the privilege of being hired by Cap and working for him for years. New ideas. Sometimes he'd be right on board and receive it, and sometimes he'd look at you like, "What in the hell are you talking about?" At what point, again, back to the respect thing, if you will, if you brought an idea to Cappy that you knew, hey, this has to happen, here's how I'm going to present it, is this guy going to take my idea or not?
Well, I'll go back a step further. I had some ideas, and if Earl didn't go along with it,
True.
I was dead meat with Cappy.
Yeah.
And then at the end, when Earl, but I'm kind of jokingly,
Sure.
Earl almost always went along with any idea I had, and he was a very intelligent person. Not saying I was, but I'm just saying he was very intelligent. He could know exactly where we was headed down the road. And I'm really Cappy. Non-racing things, yes, he would argue with me, and I'd go, "Wow, I don't know what the point of the argument was." But racing stuff, he never, he never argued about that.
He wasn't a car guy. A lot of people, didn't realize that. He just wasn't a car guy.
No, not at all. He was a people person.
Yeah.
And you know what? I wish I was as good a people person as he is. But he was very social as far as the racers, and which I try to be. But I don't know. Sometimes I would see him over there sitting by himself, and I could tell I'm not even going to go ask him a question because he just didn't want to be bothered.
Right.
I'm not that way, but
it's funny, and Cappy was a people person, but when you worked for him, you knew not to bother him. You could tell by the look in his face or the way he was holding his cigarette or whatever. Yep. Don't interrupt that thought because, hey, you may not get a response at all. If you're lucky, he'll just drive away from you. But if you got a response, a lot of times you didn't want to hear it.
I always figured with him a little bit, it was better just to go ahead and do it and not tell him and then just beg for forgiveness because sometimes he'd say, "I want to talk," over the radio on top of everybody, he'd say, "I want to talk to you down in the pits after the race."
That's terrible.
I'd be bearing, I didn't want to meet him, but never was he ever upset with me that I ever knew of.
Do you remember, and I never have spoke about this on air anywhere, radios or whatever, do you remember night Dave Hesper won after the 360 Nationals? Hesper had elected not to race 360 Nationals because the track had dried out really bad. And the following week, we ran 360 Nationals back in June then. The following week, he wins. And I interview Hesper and I say, why'd you choose to drop out? You start on the front row of the B. Why didn't you race that B at least? Dave, came out and said the track slicked off. It wasn't going to be much of a track. I didn't want to tear my stuff up. However he said it. Cappy gets on the radio and he says, "Roberts, if you ever ask a question like that again, you're out of here." Do you remember that?
No, I kind of remember the track deal, and I remember it was a heck of a good race.
I remember you coming around the corner looking at me like, "What did you ask?" That was the feeling Cappy kind of gave down once in a while. If you did screw up, he had a way of making you feel like, "Holy cow, my whole family's in danger here almost." So it was just a weird deal.
I think. Well, you've probably been privy to the radio conversations I've had with Cappy on Channel 2 a few times, and it was like, and I always thought later he'd kind of joke with me, said, "Well, sometimes I got to chew your butt, keep everybody else in line a little bit." And I'm thinking, wow, wait a minute, why don't you go start with Doug?
Doug Clark to the schoolroom. That's the old joke back over there. So
that happened.
You learned a lot from Cap. I've learned a lot from Cap. Again, the people skills. How do you learn that? That's just one of the natural things he does, but. As far as taking over things upstairs, then I got to be honest with you. At the first year I announced here, Tim Trier asked me to go upstairs one night to work for him on Maytag night so he could be in the pictures. And being the dirt guy that I am, I got up there and I didn't like it in the suites. I still don't. And now you're up there and you've lived down the dirt forever, John. I don't know how you do it. Plus, with all the talking going on up there, there's no way I could focus. I mean, it's a different monster up there.
Well, they built me my own cubicle now. So,
I see that.
That I had to have. It was too much interruptions. And, of course, I was in the rooms that people had to be talking.
Right.
So now I just have the scorers, and they're not, they really don't like to talk either. So during a race, there's no talking. And so it works good over there. But, I've got so many more jobs than what Cappy had.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they just didn't exist. I take care of all the equipment for the timing and scoring and try to make sure that's up and running. I take care of our race monitor broadcast before the race, and I get that on the internet and get it up. And I mean, Lori can do that, but I like to have that ready for her so she doesn't have to mess with it because she's down signing in people. I work on the scoreboard. I just do all kinds of stuff up there electronically, and so I'm glad that I've learned how to do those things. And my previous job, of course, I learned all that stuff pretty good, but I'm not the IT guy there. Kyle is really, he does a lot of it, but during the races, I got to be able to jump in. So I'm busy.
Yeah.
And I've got the in-car radio. Cappy never did that, so we did it in the infield, and it didn't work good at all. I mean, the car's going by, and you're trying to talk on a radio.
Sure.
But it does take a distraction from me. And trying to do the other jobs I'm doing and standing there watching the race and get distracted, it's not the best. I'm trying to find somebody to take that over, but I don't know exactly where I want to go with that.
Sure. Steps at Knoxville Raceway's progressed since you came on board, or even since you started racing. I mean, you talk about scoring. It was literally people sitting there in the window, still is, and they're looking straight ahead, and they're writing down numbers on a sheet. Now we have electronic scoring, but we still have that fail-safe of people writing the numbers on the sheet. But you've went through the transponders. You know, when they first brought transponders here, I was like everybody else. That thing's not going to work. I mean, you know, cars are going too fast, or the antenna's in the wrong spot, or whatever. And it gets me this day that a driver, not as bad as it used to be, but the older drivers are every once in a while like, no, I finished here. Transponders don't lie. I mean, for the most part, it's pretty well an impossible thing to happen. You know,
never seen a mistake.
It may shut down power or whatever, but as far as if it's transmitting, it's happening right. You know.
Yep.
When that first came to be a part of Knoxville Raceway, it was a matter of putting the antenna in the right place and knowing how to run things and everything else. And your background, just to give everybody else, you worked for Marion County for I can't remember how many years, forever.
36.
Yeah, a long time. And part of that was 911. It was part of the computer systems and everything else. I mean, you have computer knowledge. And when you talk about doing the electronics part of it, this track has electronics all over the place now. I think back when I started, we had one cable running down to the infield, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're fiber optics everywhere.
Yep. Just put that in.
Yeah. I mean, the nightmare, when I look at it from the outside in, but it has improved the way things are being done upstairs.
Absolutely. I mean, look at our sound system now, and look at all those things, and it's all even room for more improvement as far as transmission, and we're working on that. And they just wanted to come work on it next week to get our backstretch grandstands up on fiber. And we ran that last year. You know, we did it ourselves. We ran the whole fiber through. And so, no, there's a lot of changes. Everything's for the better. We still use Hugh Vrieslaar, who does our hand scoring now, because every now and then we will have a transponder fall off or go bad. And we run them as long as we can. And we know that, but we can usually sense. But everyone slips through the cracks every now and then, and we'll have a problem with it, or it didn't get charged, or the competitors didn't get charged. We're trying to get the competitors to buy more and more of them, and we're really going to push it after whatever this year and next year and say, listen, we need to get out of the business. There's no sense of us having $40,000 worth of transponders here.
Right.
When I'm sorry, we could break this all up between you guys. It's just another expense, but they can actually get a better deal than we can buying the transponder.
And this is something they can use track to track. This isn't like, you know, you have to have a transponder for this place, you have to have a transponder for this place.
We've tried to keep the sprint car world all on the A and B systems. That's what we have. And I know there are some other companies, and I'm not arguing with that, but their transponders may be a little cheaper. But we went with A and B, and you remember when that was put in, we was one of the first tracks to do it.
Sure.
And we was one of the first World of Outlaw events to have electronic scoring. And remember Eloy, you know, he's retired now, but he's still hanging with them.
Right.
And BD, do you remember him?
Oh, yeah.
They came and set this up, and they trained our people, and we learned with them. And so I like to think that we've got a great system. It works fine. We're really only on our second or third antenna since it's been put in, and that's unusual, but we've got a new one in now under the track, and very happy with it. And we bought a new decoder system, so it's just quick and very accurate.
All the electronics and everything, almost sounds like a factory question or whatever. Will it ever eliminate some jobs? I mean, you're always going to have a fail-safe with the backup scoring, but I mean, is there anything that's going to put a person maybe out of harm's way or anything like that?
Well, No, I mean, right now we're pretty minimal on our scoring people, and we need that. And I mean, you have to have somebody at the computer and somebody at lineups, and
Right.
we do it. We do an in-house program, and that's fine because we like to get the information out to our fans ourselves instead of going off-site to that. I have nothing against off-site, but if we're capable of doing it, we've made the investment. It doesn't make sense of us to throw it away. And our fans like ours. I know they like the others too, but at Knoxville, our numbers show that they like ours. So I don't see that. The biggest safety thing that we've done, just to drift off a hair, when you said put employees in harm's way of not just losing a job, but doing their job, is the in-car radios. That keeps the officials off the racetracks.
Yep.
And we learned, everybody in the country learned, and Fred Brownfield incident, and that just taught everybody right then. We can't keep putting these guys out on the tracks. The drivers are too distracted. We can't help it. They can't help it. They can drive these things and not even know the brakes went out 10 seconds before that. And they might look up and see an official standing with a board.
I'm not meaning to laugh. I just thought of Robert Bell coming in the pits one time.
I knew exactly what he was.
You about got pushed.
That just proves how dumb I am. And it wasn't Robert's fault.
Yeah.
But call a car off the track because we don't think he has brakes, and yet stand in front of him to check.
Yeah. So,
Phew.
The safety aspect, and I can remember Craig going out there and directing traffic, as we called, and that used to be part of the show. That was the neat part of the show. But when it comes to safety, you have to think, obviously, you think of the drivers, you think of the crews, you got to think of your people, too. And last year, we first incorporated the helmets on the flag stand. That's a big deal. I had Justin and Doug on the show here a couple weeks ago, and to be honest with you, Justin took a wing to the head one time, just a little clip, and, fortunately, it wasn't a terrible deal, but it's just one of those things that had to happen one of these times. We have to improve on safety a little bit. One thing we talked about, rewind a little bit to safety. These cars have changed phenomenally since you were racing, since the beginning when it was just the one loop cars or even no loop cars. The Hans device, Butler, I wish I had A, their money now as far as what they're selling, but B, their ingenuity. I mean, an unbelievable seat they put together. And you've been a part of that as well on developing safety for Knoxville Raceway. My question is, do you ever sleep at night at all? Because of your brain's got to be constantly going, not just procedures, but safety as well.
Oh, yeah, I sleep. Not normally on Saturday night, but no, yeah, I tell you, when can't remember the kid's name now out of Missouri, took a bad crash down the backstretch.
Morgan.
No. I almost said it. Anyway, it was one of those, he was seriously injured, but one of those ones where you just knew it was a bad thing. And I got over there, and I got him out of the car, and the first thing I noticed, well, wait a minute, the cage broke everywhere.
Right.
That seat's looking pretty good, and I could see where another car, I think Mock hit him.
Yeah.
Going down the backstretch and hit the Butler. One of the first Butler-built seats that I had seen was designed in their new style. Where it would have took the tin bucket we used to basically set on, kind of a joke, would have just went right through that. So I went, man, that's something we got to keep pursuing, and we did. And I got with Brian Butler later, and he's done so much good work. And the night Austin Johnson's front axle went over the front stretch and went galloping down in front of both wheels on it in front of the grandstands, I swore that night, that's the end of that.
Right. I remember that too.
We're either going to go back to all steel Heims and all steel radius rods, or we're going to do a lot of stuff people's not going to like. And maybe that would have been good enough, but Brian Butler said he had a tether. So he said, I put it on the shelf because nobody wanted to use it. I said, well, dust it off because we got to get working on that thing. And he had a lot of work to do and did a lot of studies on the strengths and what we needed and did everything correctly.
Need to mention also, we were fortunate that axle, none of the parts hit anybody. I mean, it landed in the clear.
Oh, yeah.
Got lucky.
Went flying down there, and if that had been a really busy night.
If it would have been Nationals, it would have been a big problem.
Yep. So, no, got very lucky, and that's when you start reacting. When you don't react to those things and just go, well, we got lucky, and you're being negligent.
Right. Alan Zoot, another prime example. We always talked about, we probably ought to put on a taller fence. We probably should do this. We probably should do that. Nobody's going to clear that. Well, hello, Alan Zoot.
Well, we made the decision sometimes thought processes do need slapped. Well, RJ, we looked at all the guys that made it over turn one, which was zero.
Sure.
Way back, you'd have to go back to Adrian.
Yeah.
And when the fence was 8 feet high.
Exactly.
So now we're looking at the fence that's 2 feet shorter anyway in turn 3 and 4. And Rich Hart made it over it, and RJ had just made it over it, and Johnson made it over it. Jimmy Evans. So we got thinking, why don't we go over there and put that one up first? It's not like we just had an extra $150,000 laying around to do the whole track,
right,
or more, because we was going to be going up 22 feet, paneling, post, 80 wall stuff, and getting it all made. Right. And we had it all done over at Williams Machine over in Lacona. They've done a great job for us, but it takes time too, and there's only so much time on non-race season.
Right.
We started some projects. I said, we're never going to get them done. Well, we got them done in the spring. But we was all ready to go on that project, and then Alan went over turn one. And Monday morning, Steve Sinclair's calling me. Is there any way you'd want to consider changing gears and doing 1 and 2 first? And I said, well, it's already been changed, because I just already went down and said, we're moving all this project to 1 and 2.
Yeah, fortunately, he wasn't hurt. Fortunately, nobody outside the track wasn't hurt. I mean, a great high-V truck driver. The guy knew what he was doing, So
yeah, we treated him to the track one night.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
But, when you touch the public sidewalk, that got everybody's attention. And we're close to it. We know that.
Yeah. Funny how the town's grown around Knoxville Raceway, all sides of it now, but definitely economically speaking, one of the bigger impacts here as well.
Absolutely. As we're talking about some of the things that's going on right now, and I hear people say, well, you guys ought to be able to race here, and we'll set 10 feet apart, and we'll do this and that. Well, you know what? That isn't what our local officials want. That isn't what the town wants. We know it during this period. We don't want people traveling and coming in here. Even when this period's over with, we're probably going to be delayed before they allow mass gatherings.
Right.
But the governor's office has done a lot of good for us, and the legislature, they did us a lot of good, helped us out like they did Iowa Speedway. So it just behooves us to be number one in that. But it's going to be felt, because I don't think people realize what an economic impact the racetrack is to this community.
Exactly right.
It's $55 to $75 million of money that turns over because of the race season. Now, that's the nationals, but you don't have the national sides without the regular season.
Right.
Because the car count and everything else, I don't get into all that. But when you hear these kind of dumb things, and sorry, but they are, about, well, I don't like the races because I don't get any money out of it. Well, wait a minute. That person still owns a business that everybody that goes there shops locally, and really, Knoxville people are very loyal.
Yep.
And Knoxville race fans are very loyal to the locals that sponsor the races. I'm not saying you got to sponsor them, but putting up a sign out there, I think, gets you some business. So just being part of that and understanding the economic impact here, and I've got the numbers to show people. And sometimes we drift and we go, and just to touch on that one more time, if you don't mind. In one of my earlier legislative hearings, I went to the Capitol when we was trying to get the bill changed so we could utilize it to use some of our sales tax money, same thing they had given Iowa Speedway. Well, I went and I noticed there were some representatives from Pella there, and actually the Field of Dreams were there doing the same thing. A little different, but they were there just to see what they were talking about. But when it came our turn to give our presentation, I won't use the gentleman's name, but he asked me, hey, you mind if we speak for Knoxville? And I'm thinking, okay, I know there was the Pella Business Development Committee there. Okay,
sure.
What are you going to say?
Nope.
And between him and another senator, Senator Dotzler from Waterloo, I didn't have to say nothing, because they both gave us the most. Senator Dotzler had the economic impact of the surrounding counties of Marion County in front of him that he had gotten.
Right.
And when he got done, I said, thanks, Senator, I don't got to speak. And the city of Pella, and I'm sure if Knoxville, if we'd asked them, would have went.
Sure.
I don't know, because I'm not able to go there, and I didn't have any idea that what this was going to be a setup.
Right.
Or, how it was going to be set up, who could speak. So when it was all over, I went, man, thank you very much, because I didn't know how much they knew in Pella, what it means. So I remember Craig Egan. I went to the county, and he was a board supervisor, and he went with me a couple times. And So he was very understanding and knew what the economic impact was to Marion County.
It's trickled down no matter how you look at it, not just Knoxville, but the whole county itself. That's why Pella stood up for it. But, it's a trickle down situation. I don't care if they spend the money at Knoxville Raceway. I don't care if they spend the money to Hy-Vee. Sooner or later, someone goes to Hy-Vee, we'll use for an example, and say, hey, my kid's doing this. Would you like to sponsor him? Or, my organization's doing this. Can you donate some food to help us with the meals or whatever? It all comes back to us in the end. It's, 7 ways before the dollar leaves, as they always say. I fully believe that. We do a show called Try Knoxville. In fact, we advertise for it during our show right now. Our logo's up there. We want people to give Knoxville a try, not just for Knoxville Raceway, but for the community itself. You mentioned the sales tax, and let's get a little bit into depth about that, because Dan Finley was in the Try Knoxville studio here a while back. You guys are doing some major, major concrete pouring over there. I couldn't even, it's 6 figures, I'll guarantee you that. And now you're on the backstretch doing some work underneath the grandstand as well. That's all infrastructure money.
Yes. We did started with the Hall of Fame's addition to the Clausen Tower, and then we decided to make our back gate entrance and concrete it making it as close to being a little more weather getting in and out of there. And we had to move the water filled spigot over there to the infield to get it out from where the new Hall of Fame was going.
Right.
So that all came around about the same time. We just missed that first part when they had decided that we could utilize the money for any project based on certain criterias, and even that was pretty opened up to us compared to the other one was based on a building that wasn't going to be done. So we had to get that switched. Took 3 years to get it switched over, and then also some of the money was reduced because of other issues that weren't quite up to the code in the first application. So we got those fixed. So right now, it's our sales tax money, understanding everybody pays sales tax. It becomes the state's, and we're not saying that, but we was using it to improve things to keep our facility up with Iowa Speedway, who got much more money than we got,
Sure.
and which is fine. But we was one of the few tracks in Iowa that said, hey, come on. We're an economic engine here, and we could stand some help now, kind of keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak. So
Right.
The legislature and the governor's office understood that, so gave it to us, and now we're trying to be as prudent with it as we can. Been forced to do a few things and try to find us some more places to keep where our rigs park during nationals and our fans and other things. And the bathrooms, I wish you just won't believe it. There was nothing wrong with our bathrooms for what a dirt track anywhere in the country is. But the board made these decisions, and they want to be held to a higher standing for our fans. And,
Right.
and so the bathrooms look nice now, nicer. Our concrete for our wheelchair parking. You don't know until you're out there. And the motorized wheelchairs today, they don't like going along and hitting a rock here and there and transferring from transitioning from cement to blacktop to back to cement.
Right.
So now where we park the majority of those can be on solid concrete all the way to the grandstands and back.
And
Just-
new ramps too.
New ramp.
Yeah.
I joked, I don't know who said the other ones was over illegal, but they passed at the time. And you got to remember, the board wasn't forced to do any of this. This is
Right.
all voluntarily, the handrails and
Handrails,
everything,
yep.
to make it so that it's much more of a comfort to our fans.
Speaking of comfort, how tough a decision was it last year or the year before to widen the seats out? I mean, that changes people's lifestyles, because I had this seat for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, it was tough. And you know what? There is no greater group than race fans.
Right.
And a lot of them seen the common good. And I don't remember I don't remember Kim or Connie ever saying that there was some just adamant mad about losing their seat. We gave them plenty of opportunities to move a few rows. But you take 5 to 7 seats out of each row,
Right.
Numerically, to make it from going from 18 inches wide to 22 inches wide. It made a huge difference. And so, but the people loved it. I read nothing but good about it. And I'm glad we did it. But yeah, it was a tough first.
Well, it was talked about for years too. It wasn't one of the things where we woke up one day and said, "Oh, let's change the seats." This is something you guys kind of struggled with, because you were worried about upsetting race fans.
Well, Same thing on the backstretch, we haven't done that one.
Right.
But they were all 18. We had some 17-inch seats up front. That's
Right.
getting pretty narrow.
Old grandstands.
They're all pretty 18, pretty much a solid straight 18 on the back. And, I mean, what's the great news is through the efforts of everyone and Kendra and our marketing and all of that, you know what, we've had a sellout the last 2 years, so that made the backstretch got crowded.
Right.
So I think we're going to try to stay with it the way it is. We haven't had near the complaints back there, and I think there's still room. And I hope we don't have to, because you don't want to limit. That's the end of it then, because pretty soon you start eliminating seats, people that can't get them. So I hope we get back to the day when we're at a near sellout.
I haven't put you on the spot yet, I don't think. I'm going to put you on the spot. What time? Where do you see sprint car racing 5 years down the road and 10 years down the road?
Well, there's going to be a lot of changes. There's just global changes of everybody. And I think as long as we keep young people involved and, 12 and younger get in free, every race we can afford to do that.
Right.
If we keep relevant and put on good entertainment and the drivers, that's their job, and they do it great here, and we have great racing. There's always going to be some motorheads around that want to come, but yeah, I'm as concerned as anybody 10 years down the road that, the baby boomers now, they're part of our big crowd.
Right.
They're retiring. They were exposed to sprint car races when they were younger. They remembered it, how much fun it was. They would like to bring their grandkids back. That's great for us, but let's hope that sticks with the grandkids and their kids, and maybe we'll weather the storm.
After this storm going on right now, we're going to have a whole new generation of baby boomers, I have a feeling.
Yeah, right now it's a terrible situation, and
Yeah.
I just can't reiterate enough how, yes, we're at the mercy of what the local government and the state government tells us, but yes, we wholeheartedly agree with them, and we want what's best with our community.
Right now, we're looking at May 2nd as our start date. Again, we're leaving it up to the government on that. The governor has press conferences every day almost. Also, some information I want to touch on for those of you that stay in the campground at Knoxville Raceway, whether it be on the track or at the track rather, or north. The campers are out of the barns, but the campgrounds are still closed. We're not allowing the camping right now, right?
Yep. If they kept their campers with us, then we feel the responsibility that they can put them out there.
Right.
It's like everything else. The ones that's paid up for the year, they're getting to put their campers out there. We know that they're used to not having a place to store them.
Right.
We figure the ones that didn't store them here obviously have someplace else to keep them. So hopefully they don't need to be here. If it's absolutely, they can make arrangements with us. But nobody can camp there. There's no water or electricity going to be turned on. We don't know just how long that'll be, and we're hoping they will release that. I've been trying to find out exactly what's going on with some of the state campgrounds. Big thing is we can't open the bathroom.
Right.
And I know a lot of them self-contained, but, come on. It's no gatherings, no parties.
Simple. The rules are simple. It's just a matter of following them right now.
I know race people. I'm one.
Yep.
And I know if you turn us loose on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, pretty soon there's 50 of us out there, and we're all sitting around talking. Well, that's not fair to our local officials, that their job is to keep us separated, keep these mass gatherings down. It's just not fair to them.
Yeah. Ticket office is open as far as phone calls, and they have a window open they can work through, but the doors are locked. Regular business hours, I'm assuming, too?
Yes, right now, deliveries, mainly for deliveries.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody's going to keep buying tickets. And for a while until they see what's going on. I hope they do. I hope everything gets figured out. But when we say that we're staying on the schedule, well, it's a rolling schedule, so kind of the decisions made maybe what might even amount to 20-some days before you put that out in print.
Right.
Realizing that 2 weeks is going to come pretty quick. So I just sent a letter to the teams today. I looked in my calendar book and it said, guess what? This is the day that I had already marked down to send out a pre-race season explaining opening night and practice night. So I went ahead and stayed on that. I've been doing emails to the teams now for probably 3 or 4 years, and I think they appreciate it. If they don't, all they got to do is not read it. But I like to stay in touch with them and myself. And I know Kendra highly values staying in touch with the sponsors and the fans, and me too, but that's really her job, and I'll take care of the teams. And I want to keep them informed because I know they get asked a lot of questions. And we just did the same thing. We're not even able to have a fair board meeting.
Right.
So Gary Schumacher sent out a letter to the board, keeping them informed of what's going on, because we know they get asked. And I've always been, have a lot less problems with the race teams if they're informed.
Right.
And so I'm going to try to keep it up. Believe me, it was a tough letter to send, because normally I'd have been kind of happy sending it, saying, I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Well, I couldn't say that today. So I hope it's a good way to keep them involved and keep them informed.
Well, they're on social media all the time too, and they're paying attention to the websites and everything else. I mean,
Yes.
the iRacing thing last night again with the World of Outlaws. We're taping this on Thursday, so you hear this on Saturday, you understand what we're talking about. But the bottom line is, racers are itching to get out. Everybody, the fans are itching to get out. It's going to be pandemonium pretty soon if things don't start happening as far as racing is concerned. Don, we got to wrap things up. I do appreciate you coming in. We'll check in with you later on this season, hopefully live from across the street over there. All right.
That'll be great. Thank you, Mike.
Don McCoy with Knoxville Raceway. Again, if you want to keep up to date on anything go with Knoxville Raceway, you can check out KnoxvilleRaceway.com. Hey, again, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, if you notice in the corner there, try Knoxville. We're pushing that as well. That airs every Wednesday. Meantime, you can stay tuned into KnoxvilleDirtDigest.com and keep up to speed on everything going on with sprint car racing around the world as well as Knoxville, Iowa. We'll see you next time.